It's interesting that sentiment here is stabilizing a little bit because some of the recent numbers on housing, pending home sales, some of the other kinds of home sales data has been sort of choppy in recent months. What are you hearing from your members?
You know, when I travel around the country and talk to the builders, they're telling me that the impacts of the tax reform bill, the fact that lumber prices, which were really, really high early this year, have come down pretty significantly, are really keeping them in an optimistic frame of mind.
And we've got the breakdown, by the way, by region, which I think is interesting. So let's take a look at that here in the Bloomberg. And we've got, if you look at the various measures here, and we've got, just to walk people through it, Northeast is blue, West is white, Midwest is yellow, South is purple. We've got the Northeast perking up a little bit, but it's still sort of the lowest among them. Do you think we're going to see continuation of an improvement in the Northeast?
I think you'll see a steadying of the Northeast. I don't think it'll go down. And the Northeastern states have some of the most difficult regulations that builders have to comply with, making it much more lengthy process to get building started. It makes the housing more expensive here in the Northeast as well. Those factors weigh in pretty heavily.
We did see a big improvement in the Northeast in this particular month's reading. What are home builders saying about the changes to the tax law and how that's affecting them?
Well, first of all, they're saying that the American taxpayer has more money in their pocket to spend, and they're spending it on housing. There's been a lot of pent-up demand since the recession, and the tax bill comes at a time when these people who couldn't buy a house, maybe didn't even have a job during the recession, are getting back into the market. So it's really helped a great deal in that regard. Also, it puts the small builders on a competitive balance with some of the larger builders, and the smaller builders comprise about 75% of the market, so it helps the small business people too.
It seems like we're seeing more and more private equity real estate funds these days, massive amounts of money being thrown at it. What are home builders saying about this? Are they curious about it?
Well, we're not only curious about it, we're actively engaging in it. The simple reason is, although we've seen some deregulation of the banks, some of the rollback of the onerous burdens that Dodd-Frank put on the banks, there is still a very difficult time for home builders to get acquisition and development capital. And the private equity funds in Wall Street can be a real good source of that.
I want to ask you about regulation as well with regards to the run-up to the hurricane that we saw in the Carolinas. There was a lot of talk that the local legislature there was actually perhaps not stringent enough when it came to some of the housing regulations in terms of making various structures sound in advance of hurricanes. What's the NAHB's position on, you know, as we tend to see a changing climate, as we see more and more powerful storms, how are home builders preparing?
You know, building codes are done at the state and sometimes even at a local level. And our members in those areas, in all 50 states and in all the localities, actively participate in the development of the code process. I mean, the bottom line is home builders can build a structure that will withstand any storm that could come. Question is, would people be able to afford it? And would people want to live in it? So you have to have a reasonable balance between safety, between affordability, and between marketability of a house in order to really make sense. So we actively engage with state and local government officials, with insurance agencies, insurance industry, and participate in developing the codes. They're updated every 3 to 6 years, depending on the locality. And last year in the storms that hit Louisiana and Texas, it was very clear, and it's empirically proven, that houses built more recently with the more stringent codes withstood the storms better.
We're seeing a lot of action from the Federal Reserve, which obviously is affecting your home builders. On the other hand, it's also impacting the labour market. We're seeing a very tight labour market. What are home builders doing for labour?
Wow, that's a great question. We are having a serious labor shortage in our industry. Right now, we're working with the Department of Defense, training people coming out of the military in the construction trades. In some states, we're working with prisons and training some people that are getting ready to come out of prison and giving them a second chance. We're working with underprivileged youth and at-risk youth. We have to find labor wherever we can until we have a stability in our immigration laws.
I was going to say, have any of the strictures on immigration also made it more difficult for the housing industry to find people?
Oh, absolutely. This country's been built on the backs of immigrant labor from time immemorial. The Irish built New York. Other ethnic groups built other parts of this country. And in fact, most recently, there's been a very large Hispanic component to our labor market. Until we get our immigration laws back in a place where we can have a steady flow of legal people into the country, we're going to have a labor shortage in our industry, I'm afraid.